Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some more Fiendsmith Mitsurugi games, just while I'm waiting for Yummy to come out. Just kind of been using this deck to go through my dailies, basically. Now, this first game is going to be up against Tenpai, and I wanted to show this replay in particular because it plays, like, it's going to involve playing around Droll and Lockbird. Something I talk about a lot with this deck, but this game, I feel like more than any I've had recently, really highlights just how effectively you can play around Droll and how solid of an end board you can set up even through a very strong hand trap that's really good against this deck in particular. So, right off the bat, we're going to want to start by activating Mitsurugi Prayers during the draw phase. You literally always want to do this. This is something that I see other Mitsurugi opponents I play against misplay all the time. They're constantly activating this at the start of their main phase 1. However, Droll and Lockbird can only be used outside of the draw phase, meaning that if you activate prayers during the draw phase, you can search your Habakiri, and they won't have an opportunity to Droll and Lockbird you. Now, when I go to activate my Habakiri, I'm going to summon Saji and then Tribute. Saji effect will activate. I'll add the ritual, and look, my opponent ends up having the Droll and Lockbird. Again, we see if a card is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase. So Droll and Lockbird doesn't just, like, it's not just counting the draw for a turn, it's anything added during the draw phase period. So now we're locked out of searching. However, we can still do quite a bit. We're going to want to use the ritual to send Nightsword Serpent and Kusanagi in order to summon the Habakiri. Now here we had the Kusanagi in hand. Ideally it would have been in deck and we would have opened like another hand trap or something. Same with the Engraver, obviously that ideally would have been another hand trap or something, but we can still make it work here. So we're going to activate the ritual, attributing away the Habakiri, and now we can summon the Murakumo from our deck. So already, this is what you can set up through Droll and Lockbird if you open prayers, even playing just pure Mitsurugi, right? You have the Murakumo, you have the Nightsword Serpent body, plus whatever you normal summon to go into a, rank 4 or a link 2. Even if you weren't playing Fiendsmith, at this point you could go normal summon and then go into like IP or something. And going IP Murakumo pass into our opponent's 3-card hand is just so insanely good. Now obviously here they also threw out Parelia, which they're not getting draws off of because of the Droll. But even, not counting the Parelia, it would still be a 4 going into a 5-card hand. Which again, is not too bad at all. But Fiendsmith Engine is another reason why it is so good to be on, or to have the Fiendsmith Engine is to play through Droll and Lockbird, right? Here I can normal summon Lacrima and just send away the Engraver. But even if it wasn't Lacrima, I could go into Moon of Closed Heaven. But even if Moon of Closed Heaven got banned, we could still overlay for Exciton Knight and still access the Fiendsmith Engine, assuming the other monster you normal summoned was level 4. Which, if it was a random, Mitsurugi monster, that would be the case. If it was Fulos, that would be the case. You have a lot of options. But here, again, we had the actual Lacrima itself. So I get to keep my Nightsword Serpent body on the field. We can go Fiendsmith's Lacrima, summon back the Engraver. Of course, you also have the option to go into a Bawaku, but I wanted to make the Caesar because it's multiple points of negate on a single monster. Not only that, but now I can use my leftover sequence and Nightsword Serpent to make an SP Little Knight. Ideally, I would have made like IP Masquerena here, but obviously IP Masquerena needs to be made specifically with non-link monsters. So can't use sequence to make it. But so I'm feeling pretty good about the scenario I'm in, right? Like, even though we got hit with the Droll and Lockbird, our opponent basically wasted their own Parelia. So they're going to have a 4-card hand going into our 2 Caesar summon negates, Murakumo negate, and then we also have the Little Knight to dodge, and then we have the Ghost Bell as well. Now, in this scenario, we are unfortunately fighting ourselves against Tenpai, who's got Raigeki, which actually just completely answers this board. So, not going to be the ideal outcome here. Looks like they had Super Poly to send away Little Knight plus Murakumo as well. But even if we got hit with the Raigeki into Shundra here, I think my point still stands of how well we were able to play through Droll and Lockbird in our turn 1. And it does still illustrate why I think that Fiendsmith Mitsurugi is kind of my preferred way to go, because Droll is still really common in the current meta, and I think that having that option to go into the Fiendsmith line is super duper important. Now, Ghost Spell wouldn't have even stopped my opponent from OTKing me here, but they just actually had everything and hit me with the call by anyway. It's so brutal. And so even if I had made a Bawaku instead of like Caesar, we would have still gotten hit with the call by. Well, I guess to be fair, that would have affected the Bawaku itself, but if I would have tried to like say revive Murakumo, then they would have just been able to call by the Murakumo. I don't think a Bawaku targets, I think it just summons a light or dark monster. Yeah, from your graveyard, but obviously they still would have just taken away our relevant target anyway. So yeah, unfortunately, we got Tenpai'd, but again, I still think that was a solid turn 1, and I wanted to show it off for this video. So I have a couple of other replays to show you. Let's go into the next one. Okay, so this will be a pretty decent game against Horus Tearlaments. I was a little bit surprised, you know, in this meta, if I see Tearlaments, I'm kind of always expecting it to be the Gem Knight variant, but this person is on just good old-fashioned Horus, with a Shadowt package as well for the window. Now here, even though I have the Aramasa, I'm actually going to lead with normal summon Fabled Luri. Because I already have the Habakiri in hand, there's no reason to play into the Droll and Lockbird. Alright, so this was a little bit of a risky decision here on my part too. In response to my sequence, my opponent's going to activate Havness, and you'll note that I did not chain Maxi. So I would get one guaranteed draw off the Havness, right? And then if they mill more Fusers, then I would get even more draws off the Maxi. In that scenario, it would be obviously ideal if I activated Maxi here. But if they whiff on the Havness, they don't mill one of their Shirens, then I'll have definitely wanted to have kept the Maxi for their turn, right? Because it's Tearlaments. Maxi's obviously going to be really, really good against them. So I think this is a huge decision point, and I actually think it's one that's pretty 50-50. I could see arguments on either side. However, I looked at the rest of my hand, you know, I'm thinking about this too, right? I'm already doing Fiendsmith plays. I'm looking at the rest of my hand. I can do Mitsurugi plays if they stop my Fiendsmith stuff. Even if they mill a Shiren, they're still going to summon a lot on their turn. So because my hand is already looking pretty strong, I'm actually not going to activate Maxi here. That was the tiebreaker for me. And looking at their mills, they are going to hit a tier cache, so they could still find another target here. But they mill Ash Blossom and Fenrir. So in hindsight, in retrospect, I'm very glad I did not use Maxi. But there is absolutely a world where they mill Shiren, go into Kit Kolos, and they also hit like a Trick Clown or something. And then I'm really sad that I didn't Maxi. So again, it's really 50-50. And for me, the tiebreaker was just how strong my hand / setup here in general was. But yeah, I'm going to keep doing Fiendsmith stuff until we can summon out the Caesar. At this point, I'm not even really concerned about Nibiru, because I know Tearlaments really never plays it, but they could still drop another summon effect on my turn. But now I'm going to go Habakiri, reveal for Saji. I kind of led with Fiendsmith, I guess, in a way to play around Nibiru by making Caesar early, but it wasn't even specifically Nibiru. It's mostly just that leading with Fiendsmith will often bait the hand traps from your opponent. And it's not even like using your hand traps against Fiendsmith stuff is a misplay. I think it is the right thing to do a lot of the time. But it's more that, like, in this scenario, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna normal summon Aramasa here anyway, because I already have Habakiri. So I might as well just normal summon Fabled Luri and then pop off with that. See what they have, and then if they have stuff to stop that, great, I can do Mitsurugi stuff and I'm fine. If they don't, great, I have a Caesar and I can do Mitsurugi stuff anyway, you know? So you'll note, of course, that I'm not using the Murakumo effect. Obviously, I do not want to destroy this Havness. What I am going to do is I'm going to banish it here shortly, but first I'm going to make Dugaris to draw 2, discard 1. I'll just get rid of this pre-prep because I already have Mirror in hand. We're going to use Mirror in order to revive the Habakiri. This is why if you open Habakiri with this deck, you want to search for prayers and not the mirror, or not the ritual rather, because you can use the mirror to revive the Habakiri from the graveyard. Well, not revive, but ritual summon it from the graveyard. But anyway, here I can make the IP Masquerena, and I'm actually also going to make SP Little Knight. That way I can use Little Knight to banish the Havness, and I don't have to worry about that on the follow-up turn. And then I can still use IP to potentially make Dynamundo or a Bawaku on my opponent's turn. Obviously, we're going to want to use the Little Knight first to get it out of the EMZ, but here I decided to wait for them to discard for the Great Purification instead of destroying the Sark on activation. But it did let them get rollback into the graveyard, so that kind of ended up being not ideal. I guess in hindsight, you know, Tearlaments has a lot of cards at once in the graveyard, so I probably should have Great Purification on activation of King Sark, not the activation of its effect, but it's not going to hugely matter here. I'll use Little Knight to tag out the Rhino Heart here. Now my EMZ is free and I can use IP's effect. They're going to go Shiren, I'm going to use the Caesar to negate it. They're going to chain rollback using their Imperm to try to negate my Caesar. But here I'm going to chain the IP Masquerena, and I'm just going to turn everything into a Bawaku. And then now I can still use a Bawaku to revive Murakumo if I need to. Or I could also use a Bawaku to revive the Futsu no Mitama, and then that can revive the Murakumo. Or if I really want to, I could just destroy a card, you know, depending on what they do. So they're going to set 2 and then go to end of main. I'm going to tag out into the Murakumo. That way I have the negate ready in case they want to flip up one of their face down cards. But end phase, I get back both Bawaku and Little Knight. They just get back the Rhino Heart. Here they're going to use Needlebug Nest. This totally felt like bait. So I was just like, yeah, I'll just let it go and see what they mill. They don't really mill much of anything. We'll draw and then put back off the Bawaku. I'm going to move straight to battle. They're going to try to bait me again with Trivikarma, but I don't care about that. And their face down card was just Cross-Out Designator, so we'll just go ahead and swing in for lethal here. But yeah, I think it was a pretty solid game against Tearlaments where our turn 1 end board set us up for success, and it also, I mean, we had control of the board state for pretty much the whole game, but it was a little bit dicey. At the end of our opponent's turn, if those two cards had both been live plays, we might have had a little bit of trouble pushing through all of that. But thankfully, it was just a couple of random back rows, and we were able to come out on top. Our last opponent is going to be on a really interesting deck. They're on Onomat Tellarknights. They're trying to do, it looks like the whole Ptolemy's turn skip, but they're actually doing it in archetype. Here, I think it's weird. I lost the coin flip, but they chose to go second. But it also took them a while, I remember this, to respond. So I think they were just AFK. And they accidentally gave me the turn 1 here. But we're going to go normal summon Saji. And I'm actually going to add prayers here. And then we're going to cross out, of course, the Maxi. This looks really weird, but you'll see what I'm about to do here in a second. Like, you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't you just go for the ritual and summon from deck? Well, it's because that wouldn't really give me my full setup. But by going for prayers, I can add Habakiri. Habakiri can send off for the Kusanagi. Kusanagi, I'm going to add back the prayers, and then I'm going to set 2 and pass here. So instead of ending on Murakumo without a way to set up future plays, what I've done here instead is I've chosen to end on a way to set up future plays, relying more on my sort of like generic, I guess, hand trap and negate cards here, right? And obviously at some point, either on their turn or on mine, I can use prayers. I can even tribute off the Kusanagi to summon back Saji, add back prayers, and then also search with the Saji here. So they're going to lead with the Spirit Engine here, Aratama, and then Sakitama as well. Of course, being a rank 4 deck, that's going to be one of the main ways they try to go into their stuff. I'm going to max C them on their extra normal summon. They're going to choose to end without making any plays at all, not trying to push through my max C. This is one of those scenarios where it's like, I think they should have tried to go for it. Obviously, I don't know what's in their hand. Maybe their hand is just really bad, and maybe that's also why they led with Aratama, but I really think they should have tried to have just gone for it here if possible. But you'll note that I also didn't use Imperm against the Aratama. That's because I had the Maxi in hand. My thought process was like, okay, Maxi sometimes just ends your opponent's turn, and I might not even need to use the Imperm. Or if they try to push through the Maxi, I can Imperm whatever they summon, get a draw, and then still have my Imperm stopping their plays instead of having to choose one or the other, right? It's kind of funny that my opponent's name was Maxi equals Alt F4, and I will give them props for not immediately surrendering through the Maxi. They only chose surrender when they realized I had a ton of follow-up going into my next turn, but I do still think their deck was pretty interesting. I'll show it off here. I don't usually do this, but yeah, like I said, they are trying to Ptolemy's turn skip, like Onomat Ryziel, but I guess credit where credit's due, they're at least doing it in archetype. Anyway, let's go and take a look at our deck list here, and then we'll end off the video. Alright, here is my Fiendsmith Mitsurugi list, which is still the same one that I've been on pretty much the entire time. One kind of notable thing in the extra deck I haven't really touched on is the fact that I'm not playing Gallant Granite. A lot of people, when playing this deck or pure Mitsurugi, will go Gallant Granite mid-combo to search Nibiru. I'm a much bigger fan of Dugaris' draw 2 discard 1. That tends to find a much better stuff for me, right? Like sometimes you can even find extenders mid-combo. But in particular, I like just having the opportunity to use it later in my combo line, because then you have a much higher chance of drawing like 2 hand traps. Like, I can't tell you how many games I have like burned through all of my Fiendsmith and Mitsurugi engine, then I do Garis draw 2, and it's like Maxi Ghost Bell or like Ash Blossom Fua. Well, I guess that wouldn't really be that great, but just other hand traps, right? Or again, maybe something like a Great Purification, so then I don't have to search that. I can search like a follow-up Prayers instead. Or if I don't have access to my Fiendsmith engine yet, or if I haven't made Moon yet, sometimes I might draw Engraver, then I get even more extra body. So I prefer making Dugaris turn 1 to Gallant Granite, which is why I'm not playing Gallant Granite anymore. I mean, you have room in the extra deck for it. Like, Chaos Angel, I don't ever really summon. Typhone, I don't ever really summon. Everything else I summon pretty consistently, including Exciton Knight, I've made a couple of times. But, you know, when I think about, like, okay, the number of times I'll make Gallant Granite on turn 1, even if it's in my extra deck, is pretty much 0 at this point. Whereas Chaos Angel and Typhone have more niche, unique situations where they could come up. Like when I'm playing from behind. Like, there are those like 10% of games where, or even less than that, 2% of games where Typhone is enough to come back and win you the duel, right? But Gallant Granite won't let you come back and win the duel in that same scenario. So I would rather have stuff like Typhone and Chaos Angel for those weird niche situations than, again, a Gallant Granite, which even if I have in here, I'm just always going to summon Dugaris and draw 2 instead. But I really like the ratios. I really like being a little bit over 40 cards. There's stuff like Kusanagi and Lurie and Night Sword Serpent and Mirror that we're really not trying to open, so being over 40 is pretty good for that. I don't think you need a lot of the extra Mitsurugi support, like Wosu or Magatama. I don't think these cards are bad, but basically that's kind of the difference to me between playing Fiendsmith versus pure Mitsurugi, right? Is that pure Mitsurugi, we're playing these cards and also like more copies of Ritual and stuff. But in this variant, I've foregone those to include our Fiendsmith engine, which again, for its ability to play through Droll, I really, really value highly. But yeah, this is the same list I was playing last season, and I don't have too many plans to change it moving forward. Maybe when Yummy comes out, we'll have to change up our hand trap lineup a bit, but we'll have to see. In any case, thank you all so very much for watching. Super appreciate ya. Let us go ahead and move on to the outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.